stand up, stand up for your right.
Welcome to Pimpy's Investment Chat, where we keep investment talk simple. And here's your host, Pimpy.
What is going on out there, peeps? Get up, stand up. Stand up for your rights. That's what it looks like over there in Iraq. Protests breaking out everywhere. It was anticipated, and of course, it happened. We'll get into that here in just a moment. Before we get started, though, do me a favor, hit the thumbs up button. If you're not a subscriber, please do so, because when you do, it helps out the channel, and I certainly do appreciate it. If you're thinking about buying gold and silver, go check out our friends over there at Money Metals Exchange. The link is down below in the description. If you're a first-time buyer and you spend more than $100, use promo code Pimpy, P-I-M-P-Y, and you will get a free half ounce of silver. Again, what a difference a day makes. 24 little hours. So, what's happened over the last 24 hours? Well, protests picked up. Iran is bombing Kurdistan. I believe there's a couple missiles launched into the green zone. Just another normal day hanging out there in Iraq. The U.S. State Department issues a statement regarding the Iranian bombing of Kurdistan region. Well, of course, there is a move taking place. Although I'm not sure what's going on with Xi and Putin, wouldn't it make sense that Iran would make a bold move in doing what they can to try to take over Iraq? I mean, isn't this what they wanted to do all along? Turn it into an Islamic state? Yeah, Putin's supposedly going after Ukraine. China's supposedly going after Taiwan. And Iran trying to take control through Iraqi politicians, Iraq. Iran, China, and Russia, all allies of one another. The United States condemned on Wednesday Iran's use of ballistic missiles and drone attacks on the Kurdistan region, describing it as unjustified violation of Iraq's sovereignty and territory integrity. It seems to me that that would be an act of war. The Iranian Revolutionary Guard said today, Wednesday, that it had fired missiles and drones at targets for militants in the Kurdistan region, where an official said that 9 people were killed. Furthermore, we also deplore comments by the Iranian government threatening further attacks on Iraq. In recent days, Iranian strikes have targeted border posts in Iraq's Kurdistan north of Erbil more than once without causing noticeable damage. It says these strikes come in the context of tension in Iran, where there have been daily night demonstrations since the death of a young woman. Where there have been daily night demonstrations. Love the wording. So in case you don't know what's going on, there was a woman that was arrested by the so-called morality police over in Iran. She was killed is what the rumor is, although the video said it looked like she had a heart attack. So there have been non-stop protests over in Iran. I'm not sure what that has to do with a bomb in Kurdistan, but it seems to me like they're fighting on two fronts. Iran, that is. This is the other thing I was talking about. Rocket shelling hits the fortified green zone in central Baghdad. The surrounding of the fortified green zone in central Baghdad were subject to missile strikes today, and the damage was caused by a distance that was unknown. I don't know what that means. The news had reported that a mortar shell fell a short while ago in the vicinity of Iraq's parliament, while the proceedings of the election session for the first deputy speaker of the parliament to succeed the resigned from the Souders movement. He added that a number of parliament members rushed to leave the parliament building immediately after the bombing, noting that 2 members of the security services were slightly injured and a number of cars were damaged as a result of the missile fall. Meanwhile, an official security source told the news that 3 mortar shells fell in the vicinity of the green zone. So I guess this goes without saying, we're absolutely, positively not going to see any exchange rate change happen in the near future. Somebody had posted in the group that the news was fake, and that's not really what's going on over there in Iraq. And I said, what are you talking about? And they said, it's fake news. They're just lying to us. And I said, oh, never mind. I didn't even want to ask where it came from. I can only guess. This isn't fake news. There's civil unrest over there in Iraq. You have Turkey that was bombing a region in Kurdistan. You have Iran that's bombing a region in Kurdistan. You have protesters rising up in both Iraq and Iran. We have a possible coup taking place in China with Xi, a possible assassination attempt against Putin, who's in hiding. You have protests getting ready to break out in Italy after a Trump-like candidate was voted in, the first woman president. Sri Lanka had to overthrow its government. Lebanon's economy crashed, causing bank runs, and then people to rob the banks just so they can get access to their money. So, it's been a little busy around the world, wouldn't you say? Saudi's minister calls for the signing of an agreement not to participate in the upcoming elections, including the current parties. So just to put this article in a nutshell right here, what Saudi's realizing, I think, is this. Even if they do dissolve parliament and you go to elections, nothing's going to change. It's going to be the same type of deadlock. Saudi's calling for reform. The only way he thinks he's going to be able to get reform, all individuals who have been a politician since 2003 not to run for government again is what he wants. And this includes his own people. So one of the speakers for Saudi, al-Iraqi, called on Saturday not to participate in all political parties, including the same movement, in the upcoming elections and the formation of the government. Iraqi said in a tweet that was followed by the news, "There's more important things than dissolving parliament and holding early elections. And the most important is the non-participation of all parties and personalities that have participated in the political process since the U.S. occupation in 2003. And to this day, with all its details, leaders, ministers, employees, and special degrees affiliated with it for the parties, but absolutely including the Saudi's movement, I say that with full mouth. They feel like if you get rid of all of the politicians that have been in office since 2003, that should take care of the corruption. I think you're going to need a little bit more than that, because it just depends on who gets in there. All you're going to do is replace one set of corrupt people with another. But it's believed this is what Saudi wants. Iraqi added, "This is in exchange for all the initiatives that some are seeking, including the United Nations. And I am ready, with the maximum period of 72 hours, to sign an agreement that includes this from now." So if they want to resolve the political crisis in Iraq, the speaker for Saudi is stating that this can only be accomplished by every individual that has served since 2003 to remove themselves from the political scene from now on. He continued, "It is not said that it is achieved after the upcoming elections, nor that it is achieved in a bloody manner. And if this is not achieved, then there's no room for reform. And therefore, there is no need for me to interfere with what is happening in the future, neither by tweeting nor by anything else." If the Iraqi people leave it in the hands of these politicians, nothing is going to get accomplished. The people have got to do something themselves. They have to rise up. They have to make their voices be heard. The issue with countries like Iraq and Iran is not only do they deal with politicians, but you also have religious leaders that get involved as well. So you have those individuals that you support politically, and then you have those you support religiously. And sometimes those two things conflict with one another, putting them exactly in the situation that they're in at the moment. As far as Sauder and his MPs coming back, it's not going to happen. It says the federal court rejects the appeal submitted that the resignation of the Sauder's MPs is invalid. So the courts made their voices heard in regards to the resignation of Sauder and his deputies, and they have rejected the appeal submitted that the resignation of the Sauder's deputies was invalid due to lack of public interest of the plaintiffs. So of course that Sauder and his people will not be able to get back into parliament after they resigned, outside of being re-elected. But Sauder has already made it clear himself that he has no intention on going back, even if the courts did approve of his return. Well, this should be no surprise. The Iraqi parliament renews confidence in its president and rejects his resignation from office. So it looks like Halabasi took a bold move, and it paid off for him. The Iraqi parliament on Wednesday voted to renew the confidence in Parliament Speaker Halabasi with a vote of 222 deputies rejecting his resignation from his post and 13 approving the resignation. As I stated before, I felt like this is more of a statement than it was an actual resignation. He took a gamble and it paid off. So Halabasi will remain as the Speaker of the House of Representatives. So I played this video earlier. You can see right here, these are the protesters. This was happening yesterday and is happening currently as well. Clashes in Baghdad streets as parliament votes. It says in August, Baghdad saw 2 days of intense street fighting, the worst the Iraqi capital has seen for years. The crisis amounted to a power struggle between the powerful Shiite cleric Sadr and mostly Iranian-aligned Shiite parties and parliamentary groups. Both sides have tried to exert their control over the formation of a new government since the election of last October. It says the struggle began with political moves in parliament, and the judiciary went to the streets as Sadr withdrew from the political process and staged protests during the summer, and then degenerated into violence at the end of August. It has left Iraq, which is reeling from years of war, sanctions, civil strife, and corruption, without a government for the longest period since 2003 when Saddam Hussein was toppled. Well, prior to the election last October, the full year and a half before that, Iraq was on the right track. It was moving in the right direction despite having to devalue the currency. The reform papers were being implemented, and it looked like Iraq was well on track to a stronger economy and in return a stronger dinar. Like I said before, they'll take 2 steps forward and 5 steps back. So until this issue with the political parties is resolved, the president and the prime minister are selected and the government is formed, you're not going to see any changes to the Iraqi dinar. And no, this isn't fake news. This is news coming out of Iraq. Seriously, the people over there in the Middle East definitely need prayer. How this world needs prayer, that's for sure. Anyways, that's it for now, you guys. Let me know what you think. I look forward to your comments, and I will get at you later. I'm out.